Hey, welcome everybody to a extra special episode of the British Electric Blues Show. It's my pleasure always to introduce one of the co-hosts of the show, Brad Cook, and together we'd like to introduce Matt from Dropkick Blues with us this evening, all the way from North America, and he'll tell us exactly where he's from. But Brad and Matt, thank you guys. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having us on again.
Definitely. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure for you to come on. So we've been busy posting this show all over social media because we definitely know there are a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan nuts out there. So if you guys are watching a replay of this show, please subscribe to the channel. We will show some links to Brad's channel, and also we will attach links to Matt's social media account, Dropkick Blues, on the show. And we might even put some of those links in the chat. But if you could subscribe to the channel, share the channel, we'll be grateful. So tell us a little bit, Matt, about why you're here.
Well, I met Brad on Instagram. I run a guitar page, Dropkick Blues, on Instagram. And, I'm always, it's a blues page. I focus on that quite a bit. And, I don't know. Somehow Brad and we connected, and, I've talked to him a lot. We're always talking guitar. We get together quite often. And, being guitar nerds, you're always talking about the people that you've listened to. And, Stevie Ray Vaughan is obviously, for most people that listen to blues music, Stevie Ray Vaughan, he always comes up all over the place. And I was talking with Brad one night, and he let me know that he comes on YouTube and told me about the British Electric Blues Show, and I checked out a couple of your videos, and then he said, we would like to do a show on El Mocambo, and I jumped on it immediately. I mean, it's an epic video, and I just thought it'd be great to come on here and talk with you guys and go through the tracks on it.
Excellent. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, well, we were always planning to do something like this, and the fact that we've got you on here with us, Matt, it's a pleasure, and it's also, from a selfish point of view, it's going to give me an opportunity to hear opinions and thoughts on someone who is a Stevie Ray Vaughan nut. We've got some Stevie Ray Vaughan gear there. We've got our DVDs, we've got our t-shirts on, we've got our tribute guitars. So I suppose before we get into the tracks and talking about the tracks, it's probably a good time for us to talk about what Stevie Ray Vaughan probably means for us, and specifically what this DVD or VHS, if it came out in a VHS, meant for people at the time. Do you want to share that with us, Matt, and then Brad, you can kick off with some comments. Is that cool?
Yeah, definitely. Well, for myself, I knew who Stevie Ray Vaughan was prior to El Mocambo, but I wasn't like super aware of him. I mean, I knew who he was. I had actually saw his Austin City Limits show, his first one, which is actually from the same year as El Mocambo in 1983. And I don't know, I was playing guitar a little bit, and I wouldn't say I was a guitar player, but I was working on things, and then I don't know, I stumbled on his song Cold Shot, and that song kind of got me, and I started moving a little bit further into the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, and then I saw El Mocambo on VHS. I actually own, I have a DVD here for current listening, but I actually own El Mocambo on VHS. That's where I first bought it. And that really, to be able to see somebody doing it versus just listening to it, you know, that was huge for me.
Yeah.
And I realized early on I could actually learn a little bit more by watching him play, you know, stopping, starting, going back and forth. And, you know, a lot of people will talk about learning through listening to albums or cassettes or DVDs and stuff like that. I did basically the same thing with El Mocambo. I would just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and try and figure out what he's actually doing. And for me, that was huge. And I drove everybody crazy. I had, back at this time, my friends were all pretty much listening to a lot of rock and roll, and I would force them to listen to El Mocambo whenever I could. And you know, everybody loves it. Anybody I've ever come across that, you know, whether or not you're a blues fan or not, it's hard to deny the fact that it's a blistering performance from start to finish. And you know, it started me down a whole rabbit hole of blues music. So yeah, I mean, I really, in a lot of ways, I pretty much credit El Mocambo for, you know, my lifelong now kind of rabbit hole into the blues world.
Awesome. Brad?
Well, mine's very similar to Matt's actually. Austin City Limits was the first Stevie Ray video that I ever saw. Had it on VHS. Obviously, being a big Hendrix nut at the time when I was first getting into guitar playing, obviously Stevie Ray's name came up in a guitar magazine or whatever it was at the time. But I'm going to investigate this cat, and you know, I saw Austin City Limits and listened to, I think it was at the time, a greatest hits CD came out of Stevie Ray Vaughan at that time, and so I bought that. And same thing, Cold Shot was probably one that resonated with me, that one. But, obviously, being a Hendrix nut, I loved his version of Little Wing and Voodoo Child as well, but I loved how he made them his own versions. Like, obviously, he's his own player. But from there, I delved more heavily into Stevie Ray, ended up getting the whole back catalogue of Stevie Ray, you know, CDs, and I got my hands on a version of El Mocambo, and I was floored at how it was like it was like this intense power 3-piece band. It was just like intense. It was non-stop. They almost like 2-3 songs in a row, just continuous, like hitting you with like a ton of bricks. And Stevie's playing was just so intense and relentless, and I was hooked from that moment. And the guitar tone, Stevie's ability to just, it was so, you know, so natural. It was almost, for me, watching that the first time, I don't know whether I took it all in when I watched El Mocambo. I was watching it and I was a little bit dumbfounded by what I was watching, and I had to watch it again to take it all in, because I just couldn't believe the intensity of it. And everyone, you know, right at the time was, I was getting into guitar playing and talking about guitar pedals and this and that, and Stevie was just all about the guitar and the amp and playing life out of them, you know. So from there, again, like Matt said, it opened a rabbit hole for me. It was just like, oh, no matter what I get into, whenever I pick up a Stratocaster, I hear Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's just what I hear. I love that. And, you know, it's been a massive part of, you know, even just me attempting to play guitar, El Mocambo is a big part of that. So, and Matt and I have discussed this, at length with El Mocambo, and that's why when we mentioned El Mocambo, I thought we've got to drag Matt in because I know how important this gig is for him as well. So, so that's pretty much it for me. I mean, Stevie, to this day, I mean, I listen to Stevie all the time, weekly, daily. He's on my playlist, like, pops up all the time. But this is a really important show for me because get into it a little bit more in the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to sort of touch on that yet until we get into the songs. But for me, yeah, it was like this intensity with his playing, and the band were just behind him, and they were almost just unstoppable. It was just this force, and I'd never really experienced that before. And this was just on VHS, so I could have imagined being at the show. It would have been mind-blowing.
Yeah. You see, I'm a lot older than you guys, so I remember listening to Cold Shot when it was out. When it came out, and I have to repeat what a lot of other authors have said. This sound that was coming through amongst all the other songs on the radio was just something really unusual. So I was listening to Eddie Van Halen at the same time that I discovered, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I'd like to, acknowledge Matt by the fact that Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eric Clapton are great because they're gateways for us. When you discover these guys, they're gateways for us to go back. And Gary Moore, which is another guy that we're going to be discussing. So, they give us signposts to go back to discover these guys, these Chicago blues, these Delta blues guys that started it all for us. So that's why I respect a lot of these guys just for that fact alone. But Stevie Ray Vaughan for me was just always just in the back of everything that I did. I just fell in love with Texas Flood. I was listening to something that just wasn't on the radio. And then obviously we find out that he passed away, in 1990, and we discussed this on air when Eddie Van Halen passed away, Matt. I said to Brad, I remember crying, hearing that news, that Stevie Ray Vaughan had passed away. So I didn't get to see, you got to remember, I'm a New Zealand guys, so New Zealand's on the arse end of the world. So I didn't get to see this. I never saw it on VHS. I saw it on DVD around 2002, which I don't know if how that resonates with your guys' time zones. But 2002, and I remember watching it, and I remember again. I've got to tip my hat to Matt because I've been listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan for over 10 years, and to actually sit down and watch this performance just gave you a different appreciation of what's going on. And I'm a little bit like you, Brad. I didn't understand it. I couldn't, I had to watch it half a dozen times before I could see what was going on. So I've spoken a long time. I just want to do a quick shout out to a couple of the people in the chat. We've got Arvin, a good friend of the channel, and we've got Ellen watching us. Thank you for joining the chat. If you guys have any questions, just throw them in the chat. But Arvin is right. El Mocambo's in Toronto. And I, like a lot of guys, I said, where's El Mocambo? Because they were talking about it, you sort of thought it was in Mexico somewhere, or Honduras, or Nicaragua. But it's, no disrespect to our Canadian friends, but it's in Toronto.
Definitely. Yeah, I was always a little bit confused on the El Mocambo thing too. I did kind of think the same thing. It almost sounds like it would be in Mexico. And when I found out it was Toronto, it was like, that's weird. I never would have thought that.
No. And So clearly, the three of us were blown away by the sound that we heard. You know, this guy was unique amongst everything else that we were listening to.
Yeah, definitely. It's an eye-opening show from start to finish, and there's quite a few different as you move through the show. For myself, he kind of takes you on a little journey through there, and you see little things as you're going through the show and I kind of always have the same reactions. Like every time you see the crowd and you can kind of see the room a little bit, it's like, wow, this is like a bar. This isn't a big place. It's actually kind of a smaller show.
One of the reasons why I think the band performs so well, because they love that. Because if no one has seen that's watching this, if you haven't seen any of the clips, there's clips on YouTube. Go and have a look, and you can see they're on a small stage. I don't think Stevie would have played on a stage that small since his time, you know, when he was back in Texas, you know. So it's amazing he didn't fall off.
Yeah, it's definitely a small show, and very intimate. Like I said, I always think of it like it's like a bar gig for them, and then you think about, wow, I couldn't even imagine being in a local bar, just showing up, and you see something like that. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh, I couldn't put that into words. Incidentally, if you guys don't know this, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan, his partner, his last partner was Yana, and I can't pronounce his surname. So, Yana, if you're watching this show, forgive me. But Stevie Ray Vaughan met her in Auckland when he was touring, and Stevie Ray Vaughan used to come to Raglan, which is a beach resort about 45 minutes from where I live, Matt and Brad. And he used to hang out there with a guy called Midge Marsden, and, you know, they'd just do a few things. But, you know, he played at the Raglan Hotel 3 times. Nobody knew. Nobody, you know, was never advertised. But if you were a local at the Raglan pub having a beer on a Saturday night, you saw Stevie Ray Vaughan hang out with Midge Marsden and the Mud Sharks. Wow.
That's really cool, man. I mean, I've been to Alpine Valley where his last show was. I didn't go to his last show. I had actually just started listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan maybe like 4 or 5 months before he died. So I never did see him live, but his last show was at Alpine Valley in Wisconsin. And I've been there. I've been to shows there. It's a really cool outside amphitheater.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that must have been an interesting experience, going to the place where he. Jeepers.
Yeah. Yes, I wish I had experience seeing him live. But I guess we should be grateful that at least we've got his music to listen to, and it still inspires guitar players to this day, you know.
Beyond a doubt, and and you know, clearly, guys, he's going to be a giant. And you know, you just look at the young cats today that are still inspired by Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, the successful young cats who are getting on a bit to some of these guys, but you know, but you just jump on YouTube and there's a lot of just, you know, good guitar players out there still inspired by Stevie Ray Vaughan, playing that kind of gear and trying to get to that tone. And I love it. You know, I'm a bit like you guys. You know, I could waste, unfortunately, 3 or 4 hours just watching these videos on these cats. I just love it.
Yeah. Actually, prior to YouTube, I always kind of thought like I was out on my own with this kind of stuff, like really digging in. And like I said, I would rewind El Mocambo and watch it to try and learn as a guitar player. And I always
Yeah.
thought I was kind of on my own. I don't have where I live. I'm in the northern Midwest in the United States. It's not like a hub for blues music or anything like that. And YouTube actually made me realize, wow, there's other people that are into this like I am. And it's not like I spend all my time listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan all the time, but the people that he was influenced by, I started looking at them. And then when YouTube finally came around, I was like, oh, okay, there's all these other people that are into this like I am. And it's very interesting once you start going down that road.
It's a
Yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole.
yeah. And before we get into talking about the tracks, guys, it's probably a good opportunity to talk about Kenny Wayne Shepherd and John Mayer and all these other guys. And I'm going to stick my hand up, and I'm going to be honest and tell you guys that I never kicked them in the nuts at all. I was never one of those fans. I always appreciated the fact that they always said in all their interviews that they love Stevie Ray Vaughan and they love that tone, and they're trying to get that tone, So and then you get these fans that say, oh, they're just Stevie Ray Vaughan wannabes. I don't get it.
That's a tough one, because for me, everyone is inspired by the people that got them into the music, and I'm inspired by Stevie Ray. I'm inspired by the people that I love listening to, and it's great to. Stevie Ray was. It's no secret that he was into Albert King, and he stole from Albert King. There's just this chain and line of things. So to knock someone who's basically copped from Stevie Ray is kind of like knocking Stevie Ray in a sense, because he copped from Albert King and Albert Collins and Buddy Guy and all these guys that he got into. So I've never really understood that, but
I think it's a lazy argument, Brad and Matt. When someone says that to me, I think it's just lazy. It's if you want to be critical of Kenny Wayne Shepherd, who I think is a hot guitar player, and he deserves every kind of success he gets, and he's played with a pretty good rhythm section for a while, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting subject, because actually there's some other people that I've listened to over the years that are definitely, you can tell that they're influenced. And the fact that you brought up Kenny Wayne Shepherd, he was actually the first one for me where I realized, oh, it's okay to do this. Like prior to that, it was in my head that I can't get too close, like as far as my own playing. And I would think about that kind of stuff. And I don't currently play in a band, and I haven't played in bands for quite a while. It's so hard schedule wise. I don't know how people like Brad and I talk about it, and it's a lot of work playing in a band and everything you have to go through, and plus have your own life. And most people work and have other things going on. But I was kind of the guy that people could tell that I was into Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, that's just I'm not saying I could play like him, but he was definitely would come out when I would play. So I would think about that kind of stuff and think I can't get too close. I heard Kenny Wayne Shepherd on his first CD that came out. I was like, wow, okay, maybe it is okay to kind of have that tone, steal a couple licks, and kind of play in a similar fashion. And over the years, there's been plenty of other ones. I mean, if anybody watching, if you're interested in this style of music, I mean, Chris Duarte is another one that I mean, he's definitely in that style for sure, and he's one of my favorites. In it's a Texas thing. It's a Texas blues kind of thing. The shuffles, the tone, Fender Strats, stuff like that. And another one of my go-to bands in that style would be a group called Indigenous. They're another group that if you go back to the beginning of their catalog of CDs, and you can hear the influence. And for me, that, it was pretty important to realize it's okay to let people hear it and play in that style. I mean, I never wanted to be a Stevie Ray Vaughan clone, but you can hear his influences all day if you dig into Stevie's playing. I mean, Brad mentioned, and you can hear B.B. King, you can hear Buddy Guy, you can hear Albert King, you can hear all that stuff. I mean, he listened to everybody, and as a guitar player, we all kind of take what we want and add in these things into our style.
Oh, definitely. Definitely, and he's certainly one of them, and he's influencing a generation of musicians. I think the key that you've the key there for me, Matt, is you're allowed to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan if you want. It's okay to. So
Right.
and it's and that's a key thing. So, and that's one thing though. I think that we're learning, aren't we, Brad, as we go through with the British Electric Blues, with some of the albums that we're doing the ranking the tracks, Matt. We're actually finding out that the connection that Jimmy Page has to the blues is more than just a couple of journalists saying that he stole some lyrics from a song. That
Right.
again, that's a cop out. It's deeper than that.
Definitely.
There's a bunch of guitarists out there, and I mean, one that's that I think of immediately off the bat is like Philip Sace, who loves Stevie Ray Vaughan, but he's created his own voice. But you can hear Stevie Ray in his tone a little bit, even though he's not trying to go for that tone. You can hear some of the licks in there. I mean, it's going to rub off on players that listen to Stevie Ray, and it's there. So I mean, Stevie Ray as well did it as well. So I don't really see it a problem. And when people make it a problem, I'm just like, whatever, because
Is it fair to say though, Brad and Matt? Just hold on for a second. Is it fair to say that when you plug a Stratocaster into a Fenderish kind of tweed amp, you're gonna get a kind of sound that's reminiscent of Stevie Ray Vaughan? So the fact that we're talking about a Stevie Ray Vaughan tone when you've got a guitar like this and an amp is a tribute to Stevie Ray Vaughan, because maybe if Stevie Ray Vaughan hadn't been around, what would we be calling the tone that you plug in, when you plug a Strat into a Fender amp, or a Marshall or a Dumble? What would you be calling it? A Texas blues tone or something?
Right. Yeah, because I mean, he didn't invent it. Stevie Ray Vaughan didn't invent taking a Strat and plugging it into a Fender amp. I mean, it was done before him. I think you have to dig a little bit deeper just into, like his ideas as far as, how he set up his guitar, how he liked his guitar to be, like for me, it's a lot of tone. And Brad mentioned Philip Sace. Obviously Philip Sace listened to Stevie Ray Vaughan and he inspired him to play music. But when I listen to Philip, I don't think about Stevie Ray Vaughan. I just don't. It was like he's taking taken whatever he's taken from that, and he's carved out his own little spot in there. And yeah, you mentioned John Mayer. I mean, there's so many guys that play Strats through Fenders. You know, another really good guitar player that early on was in that same vein was Ian Moore. You know, he is somebody that he moved away from that kind of style of music into more of a singer-songwriter, and you know, he's great. But yeah, you can't really knock people for buying a Fender Strat and plugging it into a Fender amp. I mean, that's about as basic as you can get.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, and you know, there's a guy called Bruce Janey as well, who has taken that Stevie Ray Vaughan tone, and even John Bonamassa. You know that. You know, as much as you know. I can't remember the songs off the top of my head, but you know, he can channel that. So yeah, all credit to Stevie Ray Vaughan. All credit to the legacy that he's got. You know, that we're calling that now the Stevie Ray Vaughan tone.
Yeah, you know, it's I think now in this day and age, that's, you know, the Strat through the Fender amp, it's a classic tone. It just is. And you see it all over the place. I mean, it's in every style of music. You know, when I listen to other styles of music, which I do from time to time, you know, there's people in pop music that have that combination between the amp and the guitar, and you can hear the tone. I mean, you can definitely hear the tone.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
and there's also nuts out there which you know, that got YouTube channels that are based around tone and vintage gear, and they're amazing players, and they can play like Stevie Ray Vaughan, but they're nodding their hat to them. They're not actually, you know, like someone whom, you know, I draw a lot of information from, and Nick 70 from the Riff. I don't know if you want to look at
man, that guy can play. That guy can play, eh?
He can really play like Stevie Ray Vaughan if he wants to, but he's got the utmost respect to say, you know, what he does say about Stevie, and it's coming from a deep and meaningful place. He loves the guy, he loves the man.
Yeah.
You know, just listening to a lot of his tone tips, and there's actually a really good array of videos for people to watch on that if they're chasing that tone. So I suggest everyone go and check out that channel as well. If you can put that link in later on.
Yeah, I'll do that during the course of the show. I'll put it into the chat because he's outstanding. In fact, he just uploaded a couple of videos. He's not feeling well, but you know, yeah. But and another guy, while we're talking about that and name dropping guys, that young guy Matt Scott. You know, just very good. You know, and I like the way, Brad, that you said it, and I think it's this authenticity that we get. And again, I don't want to come across as a snob, but I think guitar players or musicians have that depth of understanding, and they can see that in another guy. And it doesn't matter what style or what quality or how good you are, you can see that authenticity, and it certainly shows through in Nick. You know that love and that admiration, and continuing that flag flying. Yeah,
it's a very deep and meaningful connection he's got with Stevie Ray Vaughan. You can see that. So, you know,
yeah.
And I've done a few lessons with Nick as well, and you know, the right hand is just as important as the left hand, which we'll get into when we get the songs going. So things like that,
cool.
We've learned from these guys. If we didn't have these people that love Stevie Ray so much, then, you know, we'd be having to try and source this information ourselves and work it out ourselves. So we should be grateful that people are embracing trying to, you know, emulate that style and carry. I mean, no one's ever going to be Stevie Ray. It's never going to happen. But it's great that people love the music that much that that, you know, they've dedicated their life to sitting there learning how to play that style. And I mean, let's be honest, it's pretty amazing to be able to get anywhere near close to his ability anyway. So it's yeah, so all credit to those guys.
Well, you know, before we get on to the songs, I just have to repeat what you said, Brad. You know, it's jaw-dropping, you know, the tone that he can get, you know, and just even listening to the guy, you know, when he talks about, you know, repairing his guitars and refretting his, you know, it's just like, wow. I love it. Anyway, so, Matt, so this is the circuit. So you're going to kick the songs off. Brad's going to go next, and I'm just going to conclude and say, give my rankings. That's it.
Right.
So if you want to kick off, the first song, and tell us about it and give us your rankings.
Definitely. You know, when you listen to something the first time, something like El Mocambo is, you know, it's overwhelming to just, if you just blast through it. The first time you listen to it, it's so much information. It's like anything else. It's like reading something that's really technical, or watching like some kind of an instructional video on how to do something that's very complicated. When you listen to El Mocambo the first time, you kind of get just overloaded with a lot of information. But the way that they started out with Testify, the way that I look at it now, you know, I've listened to El Mocambo a couple times this week, and starting it off with Testify, to me, is, I mean, it sets the tone, and not the tone of the guitar, but it sets the tone of the whole show. I mean, to me, it's almost like coming out in a boxing match, and it's like that first time when you get punched in the face. I mean, they definitely come out just immediately, and it's like, this is not going to be Muddy Waters. This is not going to be B.B. King or Robert Johnson or anything, you know, in that style of music. And, you know, you hear the tone right away, and you see the energy that's brought to the performance, and that energy carries through the entire show. You know, it's just like, as you work your way through the show, it's almost like, are these guys like a machine? You know, you hear the rhythm section is something I've talked about with Brad. I mean, the rhythm section, it is very much like a machine that just keeps going and going and going, and it gives Stevie the platform to improvise, because there's a lot of improvising in all of these songs. You can listen to these same tracks on other live shows and other performances. You're never going to hear the same performance twice. It just doesn't happen. It's they're in the moment. You know, whatever happened earlier that day, you know, everything is affecting them. And also influences is a big thing. I mean, this is an Isley Brothers song, you know. I think it's a big statement also towards Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix played with the Isley Brothers. I mean, the choice of the song and starting the show off like this, to me, it's like it's setting the tone. It really is. It's like, this is blues, but this is blues like on steroids, and this is not going to be an old school show. Stevie is a younger guy. You know, this is 1983 when they recorded this. You know, he's really still gaining momentum as far as who he is as a musician, and you know, it's exciting to start out this way, and it's I love the song. To me, it's a 10 out of 10 for sure. And it really sets it's a fast pace, and it's just an exciting way to start out the show.
Awesome.
For me, I'm going to sort of, you must have read my notes, Matt. I'm sorry, but
I'm glad I went first.
I just put like straight out of the gates. It's like they just hit the stage and it's like a freight train just of energy. The delivery is really intense and powerful. The band's on fire. There's a three-piece chemistry there that's undeniable. Stevie's tone is straight, up guitar into the amp until the turnaround section where he kicks in and starts playing lead, where you can hear him kick the tube screamer in. There's just an awesome live energy. He's digging deep. And just to make us all feel, that little more inadequate as guitar players, he throws his fretting hand over the neck like Jeff Healey, just to make us all feel a little bit more inadequate. So intense performance, intense delivery on guitar and the band, 10 out of 10, and it's, you'd be an idiot to skip that.
Yeah, look, I'm going to repeat exactly what you guys said. It's a 10 out of 10. And one thing that kind of just, I had to remember when I was going through this DVD, guys, is that this isn't an album, so we're not talking about, what song has to be, for the opening track. This is a gig, so you're not really necessarily focusing too much on song selection for a gig, as opposed to a record, which is going to give you more longevity as far as your band's concerned. But what an opening gig! It's a smack in the face. We're probably going to talk about this quite a lot, but Tommy Shannon just nails the bass, doesn't he? I'm glad, Matt, that you mentioned it, that there's this platform there for Stevie Ray Vaughan to work off, because this certainly provides it. And I made a note here, and it's great that you spoke about this too, guys, that, this is 1983. This is different blues. This is something that you guys are never going to hear. Eric Clapton at the time was singing about rock and roll heart. I got Chevys, 57 Chevy, and and we love Eric Clapton, don't get me wrong, but you compare money and cigarettes, to this kind of blues, it's miles apart. 10 out of 10. It's never a skip, and it would certainly be a track that I would show someone that said, "Show me Stevie Ray Vaughan."
Yeah, definitely. It's an exciting way to start out the show, and it really sets the tone. It's a young guy's version of the blues in 1983, and it's still, I would think, people that come into this like right now, if somebody just discovered it, it still seems very relevant, and yeah, it's a great way to start out the show. And like we all said, it's a 10 out of 10. And, moving on to the second song, So Excited. I really like the way how they move, from Testify right into So Excited. And to me, when I hear So Excited now, maybe not so much the first time that I listened to it. I think about guys like Freddie King. Freddie King, he was so known for instrumentals early on. And I think, to me personally, I think we're seeing a little bit of that influence with Stevie Ray Vaughan with that kind of stuff. I mean, he was definitely a fan of Freddie King. I mean, Freddie's a Texas guy, so it's I think it's kind of, to me, the way I look at it now, it's kind of the tip of the hat kind of towards a Freddie King kind of thing. And also once you get into where he's really soloing, and they bring it down at a point when he's in the solo section, and he starts to go into a cold shot direction. We talked about cold shot earlier. That's how I got into Stevie Ray Vaughan. The guitar solo, once the band kind of brings it down again, which is another great point of how they just follow each other while they're playing. I mean, they're definitely really connected. You hear the beginnings of Cold Shot. He's definitely, you can tell that song is in his head at that time. It's which is another very interesting thing as far as when you're improvising. It's there's things coming out all the time, and you definitely hear the Cold Shot influence in there, which I think is it's a really interesting thing to hear that. And he's screwing around. I don't know if prior to this show, if he was working in that direction, if he was working on that song. But I think that that's a really cool part of that song, is that he's definitely working on that song at that point. He has to be. There's no way that he's not. Just for that reason alone, I give this 10 out of 10, because it's a very interesting glimpse in there. What do you think about that, Brad?
Yeah, you've been reading my notes again, Matt. So I'll sort of mirror a lot of what you say. I mean, for me, that blues shuffle, the band, again, like straight in like a freight train. And you also got to remember they were really good at doing these type of things, because this is how they recorded. They just went and played. So the energy there from the crowd, there's some monstrous, bends he's doing there. You can really hear his influences sort of dripping into his playing. And I mentioned, I noted Freddie King, Albert King. You can hear some Buddy Guy in there. Then I put the little Cold Shot double stops, where he breaks into the breakdown and the, sort of lulls down and they go into that breakdown. And I instantly thought, yeah, there's Cold Shot. There's the making of Cold Shot. Right. So, it's packed with a bunch of Texas blues licks and tricks, played in only a way Stevie Ray could play them. But yes, I agree with the instrumentals. The first couple of songs coming straight in with instrumentals to, second or third song, up until the second or third song before he even sings. I think a lot of that stems back to his influences, and probably, from a musician point, probably just getting their comfort zone on stage, making sure they're comfortable before they have to start sort of focusing on one extra dynamic, which is his voice. But look, I could waffle on for hours, but I'll say 10 out of 10, and I would never skip this one. It's the first two tracks on this are, back to back. They're just intense, and I think you would have to be an absolute moron to skip that one. That's a keeper in the set, and it sets the tone for the whole gig, basically.
New type of power trio, isn't it? We all got blown away, didn't we, by watching Cream and listening to Cream, and the key thing for me is that Cream wasn't part of my generation, even though I love Clapton, so when I saw this DVD and saw this gig and I was listening to the music, that was still music from what I was listening to in the early 1980s. So that was, again, my Stevie Ray Vaughan is kind of my Hendrix. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble's my Cream, It's just a new power trio, and you guys have hit the nail on the head. Whether they planned it or not, I don't know, but they were sort of stamping something up against the wall by saying, here we are. And what's the best way to do that with a couple of instrumentals? 10 out of 10. Love it. Definitely.
Yeah, it's like Brad mentioned, I mean, it's just coming out with the two instrumentals right away and just really, you know, so excited was probably that style of a song is probably their bread and butter, you know, when just to be able to really like flex their muscles, I guess, so to speak, and you know, what they do. It's definitely a way to, you know, really get things going. And yeah, really so excited. It's definitely an exciting song, that's for sure. Um, Next up, Voodoo Child. I mean, that's everything I've read and seen. You know, Stevie was definitely, he was really into Jimi Hendrix. I mean, that's obvious. Um, I think what's really interesting about Voodoo Child is as you hear it through Stevie's career live, just the way the song expands, going back to like that improvising part of it. I mean, this is early on as far as I believe Texas Flood, Stevie's first album. It came out right around this time, right when they did El Mocambo. So Voodoo Child's on there. So obviously those are big shoes to fill, like shoes to fill. This just if you bring it down to like using a wah pedal, you know, that was to me Jimi Hendrix. Nobody does it like Jimi Hendrix did. I mean, that's an effect that he was a master at, and you know, Stevie moving into that direction and doing Voodoo Child and making it his own. You know, he's definitely not he's not trying to be Jimi Hendrix. Even early on in his career, as this show was, um, he's definitely putting his own stamp on it. The tone, the wah pedal, the improvising, moving through different sections. You're starting to see where the band is definitely following him, and you know that's you know, Brad could talk about that a little bit more. I mean, doing a live show and improvising and being able to follow each other and seeing the head nods, you know, as you're working through these things, and the band knowing that Stevie's going to go in the direction that he's going to go in, and they're just following him the whole time. I mean, and nothing, there is no point in this show where things break down and you're like, oh yeah, everybody got confused and now that, you know, the train went off the rails, and you know, you don't see any of those moments in this show. They're definitely, the rhythm section is always locked in. They're listening, and I think it's a great version of Voodoo Child. You get to see all the different tones, like I said, from the wah pedal. Stevie's one thing that really started getting into my head, and I'm sure this is another thing with Brad, is moving back and forth between the pickups on the guitar and using the volume and the tone. Stevie was a master at that stuff. A master. He's not, his setup as far as effects go, and I'll give a shout out to Nick Svini. You guys mentioned him earlier. As far as what Stevie's using on this, I use Nick's YouTube page. He's using a super reverb, a 4x10. He's using a couple vibroverbs, and you know, a tube screamer and a wah pedal. I mean, the tones that he's pulling out of this gear throughout this, and Voodoo Child is definitely a different tone from the first two songs. It's he's moving, it's more fiery. It's definitely very aggressive. You're getting kind of a rock and roll kind of a vibe out of him, and it's still the same equipment. He hasn't changed anything at all on what he's playing through. And I think it definitely shows how he's a master at his equipment and how to use it and how to move into other directions. And he's still playing the same equipment. So for me, it's definitely a 10 out of 10.
Well, you're reading my notes, I'm sure of it. That's why we all get along so well. I think we think the same about Stevie, which is, really cool. But for me, like, this is Stevie Ray. He's got a wah style of his own. He brings that little intro to Voodoo Child. It's Voodoo Child when he starts it, but he does it in his own unique way. He's obviously channeling Hendrix quite a bit. You can, at this point, 2 songs in, you can hear his guitar slightly out of tune because he absolutely nails those strings. He's just bending them like crazy. He's pulling on the bar as well, which knocks the guitar around a little bit. But credit to his guitar tech at the time, who managed to sort of set his guitars up so that they wouldn't go out of tune as easy as what a lot of Strats do. But this is the first song where we actually get to hear Stevie sing, and I have to say it really just proves how strong his vocals are. And I'm actually super jealous of his voice, or, like if I could sing anywhere near as good as he does as a blues voice. He's just one of the strongest blues voices that I can think of, other than, say, Freddie King. Freddie King, for me, is one of those guys that I think has got one of the most unique vocals when it comes to singing, and Albert King, obviously, and BB. But it's just packed with power and intensity in his mix. My favourite part of the whole song, when he does it in Austin City Limits as well, is when he runs up and down the neck on the one string, hammering on, pulling off, like very Hendrixy. But I love how he does that. And there's this one classic lick that he always seems to play in the right place at the right time, and he uses it. He puts his own stamp on a Hendrix song, which is really hard to do. But he nods to Hendrix all the way through it, and you can't help but hear those SRV licks. The little nod to Power of Soul in there as well. Obviously, Band of Gypsies, the Power of Soul, he puts that in there as well. And really, us mere mortals are not worthy of being, watching this. It kind of makes it feel like it's inhuman to be able to play like he's an alien. So the band, exactly what you said, Matt, the band catches everything he's doing, and it highlights how amazing Double Trouble were as a rhythm section. And really, they were so close. The chemistry was amazing for a 3-piece band. They obviously did a lot of playing together, or they obviously just connected very quickly. There was that chemistry that is very hard to find with musicians. So, it's, again, I could waffle on about this one for ages, but I'm not going to. I gave it 10 out of 10, and definitely not a skip. And I would put this on for anyone to listen to Stevie Ray as an example if they've never heard him. I'd say listen to this.
Yeah. Look. All credit to Whipper too. Hasn't been in the band for a long time. Comes from a different kind of musical tradition. So when he's playing some of these other songs that are, Stevie Ray Vaughan songs as a drummer, he could probably get away with making some mistakes if he was going to make mistakes. But this is a song, 3rd song in, that a lot of people know this song, so you got to get it right, drummer. And he gets it right, because he probably wouldn't have been playing this song as long as Stevie and Tommy Shannon had been, or So I can't back that up, but it's just maybe a thought. But 10 out of 10 guys too. Stevie Ray Vaughan is just tipping his hat to an outstanding legend in his own right. Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, Stevie.
Again, like nodding his hat to his heroes, and that's what we mentioned with some of those other players before. That's all they're doing as well, nodding the hat to Stevie, which in effect is a compliment to Hendrix as well, and Freddie King and Albert King and all those guys as well. So,
yep,
definitely, and yeah, that does kind of go back to what we talked about early on, is your influences. I mean, when you're as obvious as this song is, you know, it's he's definitely channeling Hendrix, but like I mentioned in my big long rant, first up, is that this song progresses throughout his career. And if you listen to his last show, you know, the last time he played Voodoo Child, it's completely different than this version. It's not even anywhere even close. It's way longer. There's he moves through a lot of different just a lot of different ideas, and that in itself really gives you kind of a really good understanding on the improvising part of it. You know, he's constantly working on a lot of ideas, and the band just follows him. I mean, it's unbelievably how well that rhythm section just always follows him wherever he's going. Next up, Pride and Joy. I think this is a pretty important song for them as a band. I mean, here's an original song, like I said. Texas Flood came out right around this same time period. So, you know, this is a pretty important song for them. And it's a shuffle. And obviously, this is what they are. You know, this is Texas blues, total Texas blues. The vocals, which I think Stevie Ray Vaughan, was he a great singer? You know, like an unbelievably great singer with a great range? No. But his vocals are exactly what they need to be. You know, they're a gritty band, and his vocals are gritty. It's definitely, obviously, it's a personal song. I would believe that Stevie was singing about his relationship at that point, and it's a great song. It's straight up blues. It's Texas blues. It's obviously a 10 out of 10. I mean, as an original song for these guys, they're 4 songs into the show, and here's their first song off their album. You got to remember, this is the 80s that we're talking. This is 1983. What was going on in 1983 or just the 80s? And you're
Ultravox,
talking
Duran.
hair metal, Madonna, Whitney Houston, Duran. You got these 3 guys coming out of Texas playing a blues shuffle, and as a 3-piece, and they sound so powerful. You know, that's it's a great song. It's unbelievable that these guys actually broke through the way that they broke through playing this style of music when you know, they weren't a pop band. And they weren't good-looking guys. I mean, just like us 3 on here. I mean, they were not pop stars. They were not pop stars. They were just gritty, you know, hard drinking, hard living, play really good music guys. And it's a great song. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I agree with you, Matt. I mean, by this stage, they're all sweating their ass off. You know, they're sort of like up to their 4th track, and they're working their guts out. Stevie's playing his ass off, and he's singing. I mean, I have a really hard time listening to other musicians play this song because Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble did it so well, and it's really difficult for me to sort of listen to people covering this song because they miss the really big part of this song, which is how the shuffle there is. It's not as easy as what people think to pull off, and the way they execute it, it's very hard to emulate that as a band or even as just as a guitar player. But again, vocals are so strong and dynamic. This is his guitar tone straight in, pretty much. Like this is, there's not much going on here. It's just his guitar and his amp, and he's playing his guts out. I love the double stomps, and I actually love the part where he stops the solo, and just I don't know. There's stuff that in this song that's really quite unique, and I don't think I can pull it off as well. So this performance of it is really good. I gave it a 10 out of 10, and definitely it's one of those songs. Like you said, Matt, it's their song. They had an album out called Texas Flood, and this was on it. He introduces the song. It's pretty cool how he does that while he's playing. It's really a great song, and just goes to show they weren't afraid to stick to their roots and show this is what we are as well. So during this time frame.
Have you guys out there, try playing this song. You try playing that Texas Shuffle. It's not easy. And you try singing the song at the same time. Top marks if you get close to it, because that Texas Shuffle, that ain't easy, man. That ain't easy to nail down. And as much as we love the fireworks that Stevie Ray gave us and some of the earlier tracks and later on, and just knuckling down and playing that Texas Shuffle is just what is it? The right hand, that right hand technique. It's man, and just doing that alone is 10 out of 10 for me. I love it. I think you're right, Matt and Brad. It's just it's a wonderful song. It's Texas blues. Arvin's made a comment here. It ain't a flock of seagulls. It's lions and tigers and cheetahs, and it's all the big dogs in the forest and the jungle, isn't it? Love it.
Yep. It's Brad said it right away. I mean, when you hear people covering this song, it's hard to listen to. It just is. It's in the right hand. It's the right hand, and it's that shuffle. And when I hear people try and cover it, it's usually noisy. And it is not noisy when Stevie's playing it, and I do think it's really important that this is an original song by them, and it's a great song. Love it. So the next song, Tell Me, it's a Howlin' Wolf song. I think at this point they're locked in. I mean, this is another shuffle. I mean, they're right in. This is their bread and butter. I mean, all day long. The turnaround in the song, I mean, it's got a great turnaround in it. It's like a lesson is what it really is. How to create the shuffle. It just really, this is old school. They could do this all night long, and it's great tone. It seems I think Stevie's just I don't know if we could say this on here, but I think he's just playing out his assets, improvising when he's soloing. He's feeling it. The band is feeling it. Like I said, I love the turnaround on it. When you're a new guitar player and you're trying to figure stuff out, It's a great song. I love the tip to the Howlin' Wolf. I mean, it's just awesome. I love Howlin' Wolf. You know, I don't know who Howlin' Wolf was if it wasn't for Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know, this is going back to the influences. You know, these are, and we get more of these as we're moving through this show. But I mean, Stevie is constant tipping his hat at these guys, but it's not like he's just doing a cover song, because none of the covers that he's playing sound like the originals. He's definitely putting his own stamp on it and doing it in, you know, I'm sure he was considered a brash young guy at this point. It's, he's not he's not like this old blues guy at this point. He's a young guy and he's doing his version of the blues. And I think that's, you know, it's great, you know, doing it in that way. And I love this song. It's a 10 out of 10. It's a shuffle. I mean, Double Trouble playing a shuffle, you can't beat it.
I agree, Matt. The Double Trouble, the way they did a shuffle was just like a steam train. It was just phenomenal. Yeah, again, another blues shuffle, powerful vocals. I'll try not to repeat all the stuff you said, Matt, but by this stage, you get, like you mentioned, you can really feel that the band is on fire by this point. They're well and truly warmed up. Stevie tears into some power bending. At one stage, he's like absolutely shaking the hell out of the guitar to find the right emotion he's trying to put out there. So that he's not trying to play to perfection. He's just playing to feel. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10, and it's definitely not a skip. I love it too. It's just phenomenal. Yeah. What do you think, Andrew?
Oh, yeah. Look, I again, you know, I'm a blues man. And the first thing I've ever, you know, tried to do when I picked up a guitar, and indeed was told to by other guys around me, was to, you got to be able to play the shuffle. And you know, not for 5 minutes, not for 3 minutes, but, you know, for 15, 20, you know, we've all been in bands, you know, Brad, you know, there's a clip of you playing some Stevie Ray Vaughan licks on a tribute show. It's not an easy thing to do, but, you know, Matt, you've hit the nail on the head. When they're in the pocket, this band's in the pocket and they can do it all night. Great lesson, and just sitting there and going for it. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, definitely. Moving forward, Mary Had a Little Lamb. I think about a lot of things when I think about this song. I think Buddy Guy and Stevie Ray Vaughan had a connection that was deeper than, you know, just like a surface connection on different levels. I'm a huge Buddy Guy fan, and I know Stevie was also. This song it's an interesting song as far as, you know, it's Mary Had a Little Lamb. The first time you see the name and you think Mary Had a Little Lamb, and this is how I was introduced to this song. I didn't even know who Buddy Guy was when I watched El Mocambo. I had no idea, and I would have just thought this was Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, doing his own thing. And you know, I watched interviews with Buddy Guy and I've read interviews with Buddy Guy. I think for a song like this is Stevie Ray Vaughan tipping his hat at Buddy Guy, but I think it meant way more to Stevie Ray Vaughan. This is another one. This is off of Texas Flood, so he thought so much of this song that he actually recorded it and put it on an album. That's a big thing. That's a time, a time in history, a time in their recording. They laid this song down and put it on their first release. And like I said, I've seen interviews with Buddy Guy where he talked about Stevie Ray Vaughan and the older blues guys. When you go back into the music industry, it's well known that they either got almost no money, little money, or like a bottle of whiskey to record a song. There were no royalties. There's blues guys that heard their songs on jukeboxes and they had no idea what was going on in the recording industry. There's been a lot of people that have been screwed over in the music world. And a direct quote right from Buddy Guy was, somebody like Stevie Ray Vaughan going back in, recording Mary Had a Little Lamb, putting it on Texas Flood, giving him credit for it, and telling the world, this is a Buddy Guy song. That's huge. He could have easily mentioned nobody if he wanted to. There's a lot of shady stuff that happens in the music world. This is a direct, Buddy Guy. I love Buddy Guy, and Stevie Ray Vaughan loved Buddy Guy. As far as I know, they became very good friends. There's video clips of Stevie playing at Buddy Guy's Legends on Buddy's birthday. I mean, they were very good friends, and it's a great song. This is another one that evolves over the years. If you hear the Alpine Valley show where they play Mary Had a Little Lamb, they go through different motifs, and Stevie leads the band through all of this, and he kept adding and adding and adding. Obviously, we don't have Reese Wyans on this recording. You add in the keyboards. It's funky. They're definitely, eventually they started playing Superstition, and they're adding in these other things. You're seeing, this is a really cool song that eventually, like I said, as they go on through the years, it's interesting. This is kind of a stripped down version of it. They play pretty tight on this, but I love the song. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. And I love Buddy Guy, man. It's just a great song.
I don't know what else to say other than what you've said, Matt, but I'll just put in there, it's like, they come straight in from the song before it. There's no time for them to rest. There's Buddy Guy vibes all through it. He's nodding his hat to Buddy. You love Buddy. The smooth vocals, the stinging guitar solo, like just channeling the Buddy Guy vibe, packed with bends and double stops and lots of control on the guitar. And I'm pretty sure he's using absolutely no pedals on this whatsoever. It's just guitar and air. And it just goes to prove, his love for Buddy. And, it's like the band's little nod to Buddy Guy. So I gave it 9.5 out of 10. And I love it. So
Everybody loves a bit of Buddy Guy. Everybody loves a bit of Buddy Guy.
I listen to all my Buddy Guy stuff at least once a week, twice a week. I put Buddy Guy on. So
yeah.
Look, it was one of the first songs that I learnt to play along to. One of the first Stevie Ray Vaughan songs I learnt to play along to, and I just thought I was hot shit because it sounded good. I knew a couple of scales, and it just sounded good when I was playing it, So soft spot. This is the great thing about songs and music. It has soft spots and brings back these emotions for us. I can't add anything other than it's a 10 out of 10 for me. But I will make a little bit of a political statement, and I'm glad that Matt brought it up, because it was something that I was going to talk about a little bit later, about how we get a tradition of blues artists being ripped off, and it goes back to the 60s too, and that's one of the reasons why we love the Rolling Stones and Eric Clapton, because and Jimmy Page too, because they said, go and listen to these guys, and you've got the same guy in the 1980s saying the same thing, go and listen to Buddy Guy, don't listen to me, go and listen to Albert King, go and listen, so all credit to him. And it's never a skip. Love all the versions.
Yep. And I think that's that's so important, to just the telling people, go look at these guys, go listen to these guys. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, like from a Stevie standpoint. It's not everybody does that. They I don't know. Brad knows more about the music world and what it's like to, navigate through those things. And, anytime you can easily not give credit, but anytime you give credit towards somebody, I think that's huge. It's like a selfless kind of thing. And Stevie was definitely one of those guys that, it wasn't all about him. It almost seemed like at times he wanted to give more credit to people than himself. He just seemed like a very selfless kind of guy. And, I don't know how many times I've seen interviews or read interviews where when they ask him about influences, guitar playing, and himself, and they're like giving him this platform to like pump himself up. And all he wants to do is talk about Jimmy, Albert King, Albert Collins, Buddy Guy, Freddie King, all these other people, when he has just an opportunity, if he wanted to just talk about himself.
I don't know if you guys, on my version of this, it's got some interviews with Double Trouble. I'm not sure. I watched them again after watching Mocambo, and just on that note, Chris Layton's like, they did a show with B.B. King, and B.B. King was opening for SRV and for Stevie Ray Vaughan, Double Trouble, and Stevie was really unhappy with it. He said to management, it's never to happen again. He said it was really disrespectful. That should never happen. So that just goes to show, how humble and grateful that guy was for the forefathers of blues. So he was apparently not very happy about that. So did you guys see that?
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, Warren.
It's a little funky for me, because I know that there's a different version. Like I said, I bought El Mocambo on VHS, so I'm way more accustomed to the original version of it. I know that they re-released it, I think in is it 99? And
yep, and 2014 or 12 or something like that. Yeah, so yeah, they'll keep releasing it.
And changed it, just like they've done with other ones. Like if you watch the I think the original Austin City Limits was in the same year as El Mocambo in 1983. I think they've added stuff onto that one also. And but I mean, in order for Stevie Ray Vaughan to just always talk about other people, it says a lot about his character. There's different ways to do like yourself. Like, how do you build your band and grow your band? And I've seen quotes as far as like motivational stuff and like business stuff. I mean, there's more than one way to have the biggest building in the city. You know, you can either build the biggest building in the city, or you can rip all the other ones down, and now yours is the biggest one. You know, he was definitely not a rip the other buildings down. You know, he built everybody up with himself because there's enough room for everybody. You know, you acknowledging the people that came before you is it's important, but it says a lot about his character.
Yeah.
I just want to do a quick shout out, guys, before we get on to the next song. We've got Warren H in the chat saying g'day to everybody. Thank you, Warren, for joining us. And Nelson's jumped in. Thank you, Nelson. They are regular contributors to the chat, guys. So thank you for joining us.
Definitely. Thanks for coming in. I know I'm the new guy on the block with doing this kind of stuff, but I really appreciate. I've been watching. I've got this pulled up on my PC also. It's really cool. I mean, you guys have you have a community that they're active and they engage in the content and stuff like that. And that's really important. It's really cool to see people that are into this kind of stuff. It's blues music is definitely not as mainstream as other styles of music, but it's super relevant, and there are people that are very passionate about it.
I totally agree. You know, we always appreciate, you know, the input from everyone, and it gives us something to talk about too. Sometimes even afterwards, guys, your comments we talk about, you know, offline to, you know, because we appreciate that. And but truth be told, they're all here just to see Andrew because they love him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If anyone's going to stick around, yeah, we'll go back and watch the replay, and I'll have the links on in the description to Matt's Instagram account, Dropkick Blues, and follow him there, and he'll keep you up to date with a lot of stuff on his Instagram account. And of course, if you guys haven't subscribed to Brad at brad-cook.com, that will take you to all his social media accounts. And Brad's active on Instagram too, and everyone would appreciate subscriptions and shares. Thank you.
Definitely. Well, the next song up that's kind of, for me, it's huge. Texas Flood. I mean, we could do a whole show just on this song, and I know Brad feels the same way. I mean, this is a monster song, and we've brought it up in some of the other songs. The part about improvising and the rhythm section, you know, this is like Stevie can just go crazy. You know, they're watching. I'm sure that they have plenty of cues along the way. Yeah, I mean, it's a Larry Davis song. Stevie, he works his way through this in a way. I mean, it's classic blues. There's so many moments in this song that yeah, like I said, we could do a 2-hour show just on Texas Flood. It's an amazing song. The tones, just him using what he's got, you know, switching pickups, using the tone and the volume. This is like a master class in that. it's an unbelievable song. People, I've watched. I don't know if you guys watch. You guys watch the reaction videos on YouTube?
Mm.
I watch those here and there. It's amazing that it's relevant today. It's current. People are making reaction videos to Texas Flood right now. People that they don't know anything about blues. You know, it's not the style of music that they would choose to listen to, but this song is such a monster song, and you don't even have to be a blues fan to recognize how big this song is. I mean, I think this is it's a seventh song in this show, and it's by far this is the moment. This is the time. This is this is where everything goes down. And I mean, I love this song. It's another one that if you follow Stevie through the years, it changes. It's always changing. There's a ton of improvising in this. There's moments in this song at this show at El Mocambo that you will never hear again on any live performance. This is the only place you're going to hear it. I don't know what happened to Stevie that day. I don't know. Most of us Stevie fans realize he went through he had his addictions. He had things that he was doing, good or bad, or however you want to talk about it. I mean, everything adds to whatever is going on right in the moment, right in the moment. In this song, he's sweating his ass off at this point of the show. He looks like he just got done playing a football game. He is completely like he's going to burst out of his skin at points, but he slows it down. He speeds it up. I mean, this is just a monster song. I don't even know how I can even describe other than the fact that, like, if you want to know what blues is and you want to learn how to work your way through a blues song and have all these just unbelievable moments, they're all here in this song. I mean, this is for me, this is the biggest moment in blues history. It just is for me. Other people, it could be other things. I know everybody's got their own perspective on stuff, but to me, if I had one song to choose to show a person that's never seen live blues music ever, this would be the song. I mean, it's a 20 out of 10. They hit it in the park, and it's hard for me to even talk about it, but it's a monster, and it's unbelievable.
20 out of 10 is exactly what I put. For me, it's this is an absolutely epic rendition of the song. Big guitar tone, incorporating some powerful right-hand strumming as well. From the intro onwards, it's like a power-packed blues lesson full of textbook Texas blues and extreme guitar licks. It's just like, I don't know how to describe that, but some of his playing is actually like he's channeling from somewhere else. I mean, without a doubt in my mind, it sets him aside from like any other guitarist I've ever heard or watched before. I needed to watch this a few times to absorb what's actually happening because it's so freaking intense. It's so good. The dynamics of the band, just it's an understatement. And on his guitar, the way he's playing is so dynamically. The sting parts, the breakdowns where he's mellowed it out. You know, like I've just put here also, it highlights some Sting right hand techniques where he uses like a hybrid style. You can really see his right hand on this video, which is, you know, something that's really was a big thing of his technique, which, you know, we mentioned before, like even Nick Seven, he mentions that he's even done lessons on the right hand style of Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you haven't checked that out, guys, check it out. But there's some stinging like a bee type licks in there. His Albert King licks, some massive overbends. It's a painfully face melting technique that he's using. The breakdown in the middle section of the song is the highlight for me, where the band are catching everything he's doing. And really, if Stevie hasn't made us all feel inadequate by this stage, he pulls the guitar behind his back and finishes us all off, you know. In other words, like what hope do us mere mortals have, really, after watching this? It drips so much goodness in one song, and I gave it 20 out of 10. So for me, this is where you go to as a blues guitarist if you want to learn. Good luck trying to get anywhere close to this, but this is your textbook. And his vocals are fantastic. He's singing from his gut, you know. Andrew.
Just the first time I heard this song seriously was on a compilation, The Blues Explosion, and it was the live version from Montreux. And it was early, and I just hadn't heard anything like it, and I went out and brought the cassette tape because there were some other songs on this album that I loved by blues legends, and I just listened to this song over and over and over again for weeks. It's an arrival point. I think you're right, Matt. I think it's a point in history where the band put themselves on the mark for everybody. And when you watch this song on this DVD, this is the reason why Stevie Ray Vaughan turned down touring with David Bowie, going into 5-star hotels and being chauffeur driven from gig to hotel. He turned all that down to go back into a van and travel, with 2 other guys so that he could play this kind of music. I'm sure that's why he turned it down, because this is the stuff that we've got. It's a classic, isn't it? It's a masterpiece. The song in itself. If the gig was only able to record that song, well, Matt would be doing a 2-hour or 3-hour show on that song. So, but unfortunately, we've got to do the other songs. It's a masterpiece. I'd like to say, look, what did you guys give it? 20 out of 20? 20 out of 20? 20 out of 10? Yeah, I'm going to give that mark. It's unmarkable.
I've got to make note that this song, I mean, it's phenomenal to listen to, but to actually watch the DVD or the video performance of it really highlights Stevie Ray Vaughan. To just listen to it's insane, but to actually watch him do that performance, that to me really highlights Stevie Ray Vaughan, wraps him up and sums him up in one song.
Can I just make one more comment, because I'm looking at my notes here in relation to this song, and I know sometimes he lurks and watches the channel, and that's a good friend of mine, Carl, who we started this channel off together. He's a blues nut. Carl left New Zealand and went to Texas. He loves Stevie Ray Vaughan. Carl can play Stevie Ray Vaughan licks. He went to Texas to try and get into the music scene, and he said to me, Andrew, there were there's this line of guys, in Texas that can play Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff. And that's one song that they all judge each other on, is this song. And I've got to give a shout out to Carl, because we were talking about influences, Stevie Ray Vaughan's influences, and he said to me, go and listen to T-Bone Walker, specifically a song called, hold on guys, I'm reading my notes here, specifically a song called West Side Baby. And you can pick up, again, a Texan blues guy, you can pick up, what T-Bone Walker is playing in these songs, in that song, and the licks in this song. So again, it's that archaeology, Matt, that you spoke about a couple of songs earlier, that Stevie Ray Vaughan is so good at doing. These Texas guys, I just take my hat off to them.
Yeah, definitely. It's, the way they move through the song is pretty unbelievable. I mean, yeah, playing behind the back, that that's a huge reaction to people, but there is no difference when he puts the guitar behind his back. There's really no difference. It's the same. And what used to blow me away was actually when he's playing the rhythm part and he just walks up to the mic and he starts singing. There's no difference for him. It doesn't matter where the guitar is. He just has that deep connection. And it's unbelievable. It just is. And that's the big part of the show. And what a unbelievable performance for myself. I think I said it when I was ranting earlier. If there was one song that I could pick to play somebody to say this is what blues music is, that's it. That's the song.
Yep.
And it's unbelievable. Totally unbelievable.
So Brad, when you're in the tribute show, do you get the strap behind the neck? And I just tried doing that, but I just hurt my shoulder. Is that something you do on the gig? What about you, Matt? Is that something you've tried to do? It's bloody hard, isn't it?
It's really hard. I have tried the behind the back. I've tried behind the back, behind the head. It's not the easiest thing to do, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a gimmick. It's obviously to get people's attention. You just when you think you can't sort of hit them any harder, you do something like that. But I don't think anyone could do it as well as, say, Stevie Ray or Hendrix and those sort of guys. We've just made it a trademark. They just did it.
I know. There's one thing that none of us would do, and that's we'd never get lighter fluid and spray our guitars with lighter fluid and light them on stage. We'd never do that, would we?
No.
Can't afford it.
Hey, Stephen. Hey, Ken. Thank you for joining us.
But it's a phenomenal performance of that song.
Definitely. Next up, Love Struck. This is this is only at this point the third song. We're in our 8th song. This is only the third song that's an original song. Another one right off of their first release, Texas Flood. You know, more standard, you know, Double Trouble, the rhythm section. It's a very classic sounding song. Turnaround, the turnaround is, you know, you got to learn it. You just have to learn it. More showmanship. You know, he just played Behind His Back. Love Struck, we got a little bit behind the head action playing. More like you talked about T-Bone Walker. T-Bone Walker was another guy that, you know, it's showmanship, it's buddy guy. It's you know, the showmanship is it's not a necessity. When I look at it, you know, it's some of it can be somewhat gimmicky, but the thing is, and we mentioned it on Texas Flood, I mean, there's really no difference behind the back, behind the head. I don't care how Stevie Ray Vaughan played his guitar. His abilities don't drop down. His level of playing doesn't drop down. It's another great song, and the rhythm section, they're like a machine. They're churning through this whole song. And I think it's another, if you go back to Pride and Joy, it's kind of interesting, the connection. I think, you know, Stevie was writing about his relationships, you know, and what he was going through at the time. And we'll see that further down the list on another song. I think he was really, it was his life and what he was going through at that time, being a musician and also, you know, being in love and talking about women, which is kind of a blues staple in itself also. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's kind of another one where we spoke earlier about how do you match up? Can you learn some Stevie Ray Vaughan? You know, Love Struck might seem simple and, you know, it's just a blues song, but can you play it aggressive, not be noisy, and still have that attack, that stinging attack that Stevie, you know, he was well known for having that ability. It's a great song.
You stole all my notes, Matt. So, yeah, it's just like they come in, kicks like a mule from the very start. Great vocal delivery. You know, one of their songs. Classic guitar, blues guitar licks in there. I just put in there, obviously played Behind the Head, but I love how he puts his hat back on at the end of that section and gets back on to the next song. And I gave it a 9 out of 10, and I think that's another song that I have trouble listening to a guitarist cover, because it is one of those ones that, yeah, he had that style, you know, that was hard to emulate. And yeah, like you said, Matt, it's like hearing people play it noisy and clunky and things like that. It sort of makes you realise how clear and clean Stevie played. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for me.
You know, that intro's like mandatory. You got to try and learn it. You got to try, and it's pretty easy, isn't it? Really, when you think about it, you're at the 12th fret, dan, 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 and then you're up at the 5th fret, you know, and you go, wow, I'm nailing this. I can do this. And then, you know, that's the deceptive thing about the music that we like, because you can come in at any stage of your development or your ability as a guitar player, and you could be playing for 3 months or 3 weeks, and you can probably play along to the song. You could be playing for 3 years or 30 years, and still, play along to the song. I agree with you, Brad. I find it hard to listen to other guys play this song because it's just always in me. It's a song, it was a song that was on the radio. It was a song that they were playing in between flock of seagulls, that kind of stuff, So it was a radio song. It was popular. It was a party song, I remember going to parties and this song being played 10 times in a row, Yeah, look, I love it. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. And go and learn to play that intro.
Yeah, it's very deceptive. It just is. It sounds like a simple song. I think it's in the key of A, which is a pretty standard thing, but it's kind of like Chuck Berry songs. They're deceptively simple. They just are. If you're gonna play it with the bravado and the swagger and the sting and the tone, that's where all that stuff comes in. Yeah, you can play it without all of that emotion, but it just does not come out the same way. And then when you step up, and Brad can talk, more about this, a lot of these songs, when you add that aggression, that's where things get sloppy and they're not going to sound the same.
No, it's 100%. Yeah. I always sort of admire players that focus on, like when they're trying to play a Stevie Ray Vaughan song, trying to capture the feel, not just the notes. And that's, his tone was one thing. The way he executed, like the way he actually did that shuffle as well, that's a unique style within itself. So you can sit in, but yeah, we can go on for hours about this, but yeah, he was on the top of his game when it came to being a Texas blues guitarist. He was the dude, without doubt.
Definitely. Up next, this is actually Hug You, Squeeze You. This is actually one of my favorite songs on this entire recording. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the riff that is played throughout it. It's obviously got the shuffle feel to it. I think it's interesting because I believe from the key, I think it's in F. I think maybe that might have part of it. It's like the tone of it, because that's an interesting key to play in, and I love the riff. The way the song starts out, I think it's a really cool riff. It's a shuffle. It's their bread and butter. I mean, we've spoken about this in plenty of other songs. The rhythm section is just locked in. I think the vocals are really cool on this song. And I think that's something that throughout, like the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, for me, it comes out all the time. Just that, he's not just an unbelievable singer that just knocks you out all the time, but he's always just right there with his vocals. He's got a grittiness to his tone of his vocals, and it's nothing special, but it's perfect for the song. I think if he did have like these abilities to go all over the place in his vocals, it would change the dynamics of the song quite a bit. and it would change it in all of his other songs. He's not trying to like put his vocals out front. They're just like right in the pocket, right where they need to be. And then this song, it's got a really cool, the solo is another one. It's deceptively simple. It's a cool song. I saw Nick actually went through this song on his YouTube page. I I think this is a really cool song. For me, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. And it's a John Lee Hooker song. So I mean, how can you go wrong with that?
It will, you know, coming in straight from the last song, it's just got that swaggerful playing. I have to sort of, follow up with the great vocals, and he did know how to put the vocal to suit the song, never tried to outdo the song vocally. But that's how I felt about his guitar playing too. He played for the song, not necessarily to be an overplayer or anything like that. The band's absolutely cooking as per usual, but this song really highlights the band, how tight they were.
Yeah.
His guitar playing, just when you think he's having a little layback on his guitar, he hits the tube screamer and it all takes it off to another level again, So I've always loved this song, and the performance of this icon, El Mocambo, is fantastic, and I gave it 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's one song on the album. If you have a look at Tommy Shannon, he's always looking at Stevie Ray Vaughan, isn't he? It's just, I kind of. It kind of just blows me away, because clearly he loved, playing with Stevie Ray Vaughan, and it's just, in his expression, in his face, and he's just looking at him, and so Stevie's just standing there, isn't he? And he's playing that shuffle, Matt and Brad, after he's not doing any fireworks, there's nothing behind his neck or anything like that, so he's probably taking a breather, getting that shuffle down. It's always a 10 out of 10 for me. Just a classic Stevie Ray Vaughan song. Probably a song that doesn't get enough recognition, I would say. It's interesting. Thank you for pointing out that Nick's discussed that song recently. I'll go and check that out because I missed that video. So I'll check him out. But thank you for pointing that out. But it's a good example of another Stevie Ray Vaughan song that you can probably study if you don't want to listen to the classics. If you guys understand what I mean, probably something that's going to get you at least playing along.
Yeah, and I don't know how often they even played that song. I've never heard any other live performances where they play Hug You, Squeeze You. I have no idea. I don't know if that falls into the theme that I've brought up a few different times where I don't know if it's Stevie's personal life at this time, but he seems to be singing about his relationship with his wife at that point. I don't know if that's where it's at. I have no idea, but it's an interesting song that you're just not going to see on other recordings or any live performances by him. And like I said, it's a John Lee Hooker song. I mean, it's classic blues, tipping his hat, and that's a great performance. And they're pretty far into this show at this point, and it's the rhythm section is just on, like you're saying, they're always watching him, and he's improvising. It's that's what he does, and that's how the band plays. It's that trade-off, the back and forth of how they're working their way through this performance, and it's I think like that rhythm section part of it, the more you watch a show like this, because I've watched it so many times, that I'm able to at points just kind of not pay as much attention to Stevie Ray Vaughan at times and focus a little bit more on the rhythm section and how they're locked in. And, to be able to follow somebody that can improvise at will and play things in one show that'll never be played again, ever. They'll never even get close to some of these things. But to be able to follow Stevie that way, it's amazing. And those guys, their talent is it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%, Matt. 100%. I think they all admire each other equally. I think you can see that when they're playing, they respected and admired each other like brothers. But that harmonic connection, they had something that was a little bit deeper than just like mates at the pub. You know what I mean? They were brothers. They connected. The chemistry was there, and they mutually respected each other. And you can really see that they actually did truly love each other. Especially in retrospect when you see, Chris and Tommy talking about Stevie. They're obviously coming from a personal place with Stevie, not just as a guitarist. So, but they watched him like a hawk, but he was listening to them like a hawk, I'm sure.
Big
Right.
time.
Right. Yeah, and and then obviously those of us that pay attention, you see Chris and Tommy pop up on other people's recordings. I mean, they're a rhythm section. They're desirable, and I've listened to them do things like Archangels is another thing that they did, and they brought the same kind of like their musicality, the way that they lock in on a groove and can support whoever's out in front of them. It's that's important, and they're not the focus so much. They're the guys that give somebody, like in this live recording, they're giving Stevie Ray Vaughan the ability to explore his ideas in the moment. And they might never touch on those things ever again. It's pretty magical.
I want to highlight there's an album they did with, I think I may have discussed this with you, Matt, offline. They did an album for an artist called Little Jimmy King, and they played rhythm section on the whole record. The album's called Blues Been Good to Me by Little Jimmy King, and Double Trouble of the rhythm section, basically, and it's phenomenal. They're holding it together like Double Trouble used to, and they had a thing. They had that rhythm section thing down.
Yeah, definitely.
Worth listening to.
It's a fun way to be able to see how you can interact, in a live situation and be spontaneous. But I'm sure that they have their little things that if they were to look back, they could pick apart the performance in different ways and say, we were losing it here, or things were kind of getting a little funky at different times. But as listeners, they just always seem to be so engaged in what's going on, and it's fun to watch. And I love those guys just as much as listening to Stevie. Great musicians, and it's phenomenal. So now we move into a song. We spoke about this a little bit earlier. Third Stone from the Sun. For me, this is always a weird part of the show. Like, I don't know I don't know if this is like an artistic moment, or it's so much different from anything before or after. It's definitely it's different. It's, you know, obviously it's a Hendrix thing, and I'm sure that, you know, they're open as far as the palette of what they can do. Stevie has obviously got all kinds of room in the rhythm section. It's a locked in groove. You know, it's the bass line is very repetitive. I don't know if the bass line changes from the start to the finish. It's pretty much just a groove, and Stevie is just doing what he's doing. He definitely beats the hell out of his #1 Stratocaster on this. I mean, this is, you definitely, it gives you a there's a reason why he's not playing #1 when they come in on the next song, Lenny, because I don't think you can abuse. It's definitely out of tune by the end of this song. He's pushing the limits of what you can actually do with a neck and a guitar, and how hard you can actually beat that instrument. And it almost seems like he's going through like a love-hate thing with his guitar. It's just it's it's interesting. It's very interesting. I believe in 1983, I don't think he's changed anything on his guitar at this point. I know eventually the neck was changed because it was either like a refretting thing, or I think maybe even the guitar might have fell off stage at one point and the neck was damaged. But it's an interesting song. Um, it goes to a place that is very unique just to this song, and I I give it a 10 out of 10 just because it's completely different, and it is what it is, I guess.
Well, obviously, it's another nod to Hendrix. Um, you can hear the guitars slightly out of tune from the start. It's like, obviously his whammy bar. He's playing quite excessively on that. He ends up punishing his beloved #1 from plucking strings, behind the nut. The whammy bar abuse, the heavy flipping it on the ground, smashing it, standing on it, abusing it up against the amp, string breaking. It's kind of like a ceremony or a sacrifice experience. So I think that's kind of what I'm seeing there. The band's holding it together for him. Is it symbolic of something, relationship-wise? We don't know. We'll never know, I guess. But I think that it had more to do with maybe a moment thing for him, because I don't know whether he did that to that #1 all the time. I'm not sure he did. So I do think some in the neck did get changed. One of the times it got changed that I'm aware of is in one of the books I read about Stevie was some lightning trussing came down and hit the guitar. And I think, it could have killed someone, and Stevie was more concerned about that than the neck of his guitar. So, I think Cesar Diaz was there, and it just missed Cesar Diaz. But anyway, that's a whole other story. There was something that I read about the #1 guitar, but I do believe it's like a ceremony or a sacrifice experience, and I hope he wasn't deliberately trying to break that guitar, because he didn't succeed in breaking it, but it took a fair pounding, and I gave it a 9 out of 10 just because I think it's symbolic for the time frame and the gig. I do believe that there may have been one or two more songs that weren't added to the live DVD or CD or any of that stuff, but maybe this was closer to the end. Maybe there was one or two more tracks, I think, that were... I've seen one or two more tracks from Mocambo on YouTube. I forgot what they are now off the top of my head, but yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. And I'm not sure this is something you'd show someone though as a first impression of Stevie Ray Vaughan if they'd never heard or seen him play. I'm not sure this would be the thing that you would play for them. So yeah, Andrew, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Thank you. We've got 15 people watching the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Look, I like it when Stevie Ray Vaughan is channeling Buddy Guy. I like it when Stevie Ray Vaughan is channeling Albert King and T-Bone and Howling Wolf. I don't like it when Stevie Ray Vaughan's channeling Pete Townsend. You know, I don't get it. I never have liked this part of the show. Look, I don't know what he's doing. I don't like it at all. I'm going to give it 5 out of 10. And I definitely wouldn't show this to anybody that wanted to experience Stevie Ray Vaughan, who didn't know Stevie Ray Vaughan. I don't get it. And yeah, thank God it wasn't the last song.
Yeah, it's different. It is such a weird part of the show, and I never really thought of it like how Brad mentioned, like how often did they, perform in this way? It's different. It's very different. It's somewhat confusing, but it's like a moment, I guess, is all you can really say. I seriously doubt that he beat the hell out of that Strat like that night after night and did that same thing. I don't know. I don't know if it was something that they did for the show. It's an interesting moment, and but I do think in a way it sets up the next song. It's interesting, the dynamics of how they go from Third Stone from the Sun into Lenny. Now all of a sudden with Lenny, obviously a new guitar, his tech is obviously working on his number one Strat after he beat the hell out of it on that song. But then they go into Lenny, and everything really comes down at that point. One thing that I always notice when they go into Lenny is that Stevie Ray Vaughan is like sweating his ass off when he's playing that song. You really get to see, like, at that moment how much energy and what he's been doing to himself at that point. And then he sits down and starts playing in a completely different way. And he really brings, just watching it on the video, it's like everything just really closes right in on him. And now he's playing, the dynamics are completely different. The tone it's another moment, I think, in the show where he shows, like, your right hand, your left hand, using your volume, using the different pickups. He's showing, it's almost like a demonstration in some sort of what you can actually do with a Stratocaster, how diverse the sounds are, and if you use your fingers versus using the pick, and how you attack it with your right hand. There's moments where he's really aggressive, but it's still really clean sounding. Just you can make the notes jump, or you can really, really play super light on them and squeeze the notes and really, I've heard terms later after that I didn't know with El Mocambo where you can make notes bloom and stuff like that. I mean, he's almost, at points it almost seems like his Stratocaster is like a woman, and he's like it's like romance at times when he's playing the guitar. And I know that that's probably like strange, but that's almost how I feel at times. And obviously the song is Lenny, and that was his first wife, so I think it's a deep song. And he shows just so many different parts of his playing where like maybe at points a little jazz influence, um like the T-Bone Walker, just it's a great song. The chords that he's playing, you're seeing a lot of chords that you're not going to see in any of his other songs. It's, with Lenny and Riviera Paradise, those are two songs where you're starting to see a real difference in how he approaches the guitar. I've like I'm sure Brad has spent his time with Lenny and his guitar. I mean, it's just one of those songs where as a guitar player you're definitely gonna get into that. And it's a fun song. It's a different song for it's not Texas blues. Shows a completely different side, and it's obviously a 10 out of 10 for me.
Well, Matt, I think you've been reading my notes, so I'm sure of it. Lenny, I can see where he nods to Hendrix all the way through this, with his delicate touch and tone, the way he plays. I could hear the Wind Cries Mary references. I mean, I noted here, by this stage you can really see how affected he is by his intensity of his playing. Obviously, at this point in his career, which I don't want to sort of go on too much about, he was indulging in stuff, and to be able to still play that well, where most people would basically be struggle to play an open chord, So he was in a very heightened state by this point and challenged something else. There's some really delicate playing with some real dynamic stabs. You can hear, like, the maple neck guitar is really evident in the tone of this song, and I think that's why he chose this guitar to play this song on for the majority of his career, because of that maple tone that he went for. That might even be more of a lean to Hendrix again, with the Wind Cries Mary stuff and that, with a maple neck. My favourite part of this is the build up towards the end, where he hammer-ons and pulls off, and he's playing with his thumb on the picking. So he's not actually picking with a pick. Like I keep saying, he's channeling Wind Cries Mary, but he's making it his own. He's nodding to his love of his life, which is his first wife at that point. I have spent a lot of time, noodling with this on guitar, and I still am baffled to this day how deep he managed to get into this performance of this song. And I love the end part, just with the whammy bar and the harmonic pitches, and it's like a 20 out of 10 for me, this one, and 10 out of 10. And this would be one that I would play to any person who's never heard Stevie Ray Vaughan before again. Now listen to this. This is someone who's managed to channel something from somewhere else and put it on his guitar. So I'll let you take over, Andrew, because I could talk about this one for another 10, 15 minutes, mate. So
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a beautiful song, isn't it? It's clearly his version of a love song, in so many ways, and it's a song that you can play to your girlfriend or to your wife. Yeah, it's a great song. I echo everything that Matt and you have said, Brad, about this song. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. I just want to talk about one little thing, though. I take my hat off to the sound guys in this club, or the engineers who recorded this, because, you've had some Texas blues, some hot stuff going, and some weird guitar surfing happening too, and then all of a sudden you've got this beautiful chiming, chords, jazz stuff that Matt mentioned, coming through. Just remarkable how these guys managed to do that, quickly. The transition, the whole crew, from one song to another, without the computers and without all the gear that we have or that you see today. It's just remarkable. It's a 10 out of 10 for me, and it's never a skip when it's on 3 or 4 of the albums that I've got, that, or the greatest hits, or yeah, always play it.
Yeah, it's a very dynamic performance. And one thing I think I always noticed early on, one thing like what you said, Brad, you kind of they zoom right up on his face at times, and it's like you can tell that it's his lifestyle and everything. He does not look anything like he did later in his life, when he eventually got to a point where he worked out a lot of the problems that he had. And yeah, you get to see what he actually looks like. I mean, it's an amazing performance, and it's such a different song from him. It just is. And I think that his the way when he's playing chords and using the whammy bar, that's like a very distinctive sound. And that's another technique that it appears much simpler than what it actually is to actually do it correctly.
Yep.
And for a lot of the song, he does not have that rhythm section behind him. He's very much in the spotlight, and it's all on him, and everything moves along very, just like there's a metronome clicking in his head. You get to see the timing, and just he's so dynamic in that song. It's a great, and I think the point you made about the maple neck, that's a big change. That's moving more towards like the Clapton tone, and it's different. And I know even when we've chatted on Instagram Live, you'll get the question where people will say, how do you mix major and minor pentatonics together? And this song is kind of a study in that. There's plenty of moments where, I mean, this song's in a major key. I mean, it is a major song, but he has his moments where he hits those minor pentatonics just perfectly, and then he's back to major again. And it's kind of a study in, we talked about Kenny Wayne Shepherd earlier. I can't think of the name of the Kenny Wayne Shepherd song, but he's got a song that is, the tone is very similar, and he floats
Blue on
back
Black?
and forth. It's on Ledbetter Heights. I can't remember the name of the song. It's
Okay,
escaping
cool.
me.
Is the song
Great
called
album. Might be.
What is it?
Hold on.
Is the song called Ledbetter Heights?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Can't
But
think of it.
you know, it's in a similar vein, and talking about the major and the minor and stuff like that.
Deja
I'm
Voodoo?
I can't get too technical because I it's hard for me to explain that kind of stuff, but that's something that always jumps out to me, and I have spent time trying to work my way through Lenny, and it's it's a cool song, and it's kind of a roadmap on the major minor kind of thing.
Yeah. We mentioned Philip Sace before, and he does a lot of this Lenny style playing in a song called Once off Spirit Rising record. So,
Yeah.
if guys, if you have not heard of Philip Sace, that are in the chat or later, do yourself a massive favour and check Philip Sace out. He's got a new record out called Spirit Rising, which he released this year, and it's phenomenal. And his earlier records are in the same vein. Phenomenal guy, obviously very influenced by Stevie and Jimmy, and but he's forged his own little sound. I just thought I'd throw that in since we're talking about the closeness to the Lenny thing with Kenny Wayne Shepherd, but Once by Philip Sace is very much in the same vein, and same with 555. You listen to that as well off Spirit Rising.
Right. Yeah, and that's Spirit Rising is such a great release. I love it. I have it. I listen to it. Phillips definitely. I saw him play with Jeff Healey, and I didn't even know who Philip Sace was. I went to a blues festival, and I've been a huge fan of his ever since then. He definitely has the ability to tap into something that is on a whole nother level, and I haven't seen him recently, but I've talked to people that have seen him. Obviously, COVID has changed things, but I know someone that saw him back in the beginning of 2020, like January, and they had never seen him before, and they were like, wow, you think you know where the ceiling is, like where you can actually play, but when you see him play, then you realize there's levels above. You know, there's guys that do this with an intensity that is very similar to like with the Stevie Ray Vaughan. And it's not that he's doing a Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, it's that he can play with an aggression and an intensity that is, it takes it to a level. It's not noodling on a guitar. It's pouring everything that you have into it and channeling something that is greater than all of us.
Yep.
All right. Last song on the track on the original release, Wham, which is a Lonnie Mac song. This is how I heard about Lonnie Mac. I had never even heard of Lonnie Mac, so this song made me go out and explore Lonnie Mac and see, what is it about him that made Stevie Ray Vaughan play this song. I mean, they end this show very similar to how they start this show. I mean, when you're looking at the video and you can see the fretboard on his guitar, the fretboard's wet. There's visible sweat and moisture, and they are locked in the rhythm section. It's another song where the rhythm section, it's like a machine. They're locked in, and I'm assuming that I haven't seen them perform Wham. This is the only performance I've ever seen of Double Trouble playing Wham. It's open for improvising, going where you want to go. You know, they're following Stevie the whole time. And coming out of Lenny and going into this song, it's like, what do they have left in the tank? You know, where can they go? And then they go into Wham, and it's like blowing your hair back on your head. I mean, the pace, the aggression, you know, Stevie is just even his guitar looks wet at this point. The whole thing, he's sweating like a monster. How much of that has to do with the substances he took, I have no idea, but they are not. Everything is just wide open at this point. They're going for it. They're going to end the show in a huge way and don't leave anything out on the stage. They're going to touch this corner, this corner, this corner. They're going to go all over. I mean, like tone wise, it's not that dynamic, but it's just basically like this roller coaster. You're up at the top now. You're on this huge roller coaster. We're just going to ride it right down to the very bottom. And then they end it, and it ends in just like this, you know, this is just what we do. This is what we do. We play shows, and we have this Texas blues, like this is our show. This is what we do. And I think that's, I'll let you guys say your stuff because I know I ramble on a lot, but one thing that I've seen in interviews is that, you know, guys like us who never got to see Stevie Ray Vaughan, and there's a lot of people that have never seen Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you watch El Mocambo, we think of it as like this, like highlight, like this is this like big performance. From the stuff I've seen from professional musicians, guys that are really on top of their game, this is what they did every night. This wasn't like a special moment in time. They were like a runaway freight train at this point. This is what they did every time they played. They rolled into a place, and when they left, the people, I'm assuming, that got to see a performance like this were like, oh my God, what did we just see? And they did it night after night after night after night, and they lived it. You know, this was it. And the way they end it, it's a perfect example of that. They're a freight train. It's a 10 out of 10, obviously.
Matt, I love how you described that. I don't know if I can describe it any better than that. You know, I'll highlight that this is what they did every night. They obviously, their performances may not have been identical, but they went out there. They played like this. They played like this on recordings. What you're hearing on the recordings is 90% of it's live. You know, just unbelievable. Like they were a freight train, like you said. They just switched it on, and that's how they played. And it's exactly the statement they made at the end of the song. Was like, "This is what we do." And we're back again whenever our next gig is. We're back again doing exactly the same thing, the way we do it. That's how we do it. Right. This song, great way to end the DVD, slamming blues shuffle, relentless intensity, amazing guitar playing. I mean, I love the double stops that Stevie does. His hands must be absolutely fatigued by this stage, but there's no sign of him giving up. You know, I mean, there's the way he shakes those bends, 13 gauge strings up. You know, he was a monster, and you know, obviously channeling something from somewhere else. The way he played that guitar. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever tried to play with 13 gauge strings on a Strat, even in half a step down, which is what they did. It's not easy, and you know, and he had a very high action as well. So that being said, I could rave on for another 10, 15 minutes about this song too. I gave it a 10 out of 10, and I'll hand it over to you, Andrew.
Okay, I just want to do a couple of shout outs. So if you guys haven't checked out this book here, it came out last year. It's a mandatory read for Stevie Ray Vaughan nuts. Now, forgive me if I pronounce Andy's surname wrong, Andy Aldort. In his introduction, he talks about how he went and saw Stevie Ray Vaughan the first time, and he said they could hear this band outside in the car park. They were loud. And this is the song, Wham, that I imagine that's really, really loud, you know, because that's the song that sounds the loudest, in my opinion, out of the whole songs on the DVD. It's a 10 out of 10. I'm like you, Matt. I didn't know anything about Lonnie Mac until, you know, this DVD came out, you know, and, you know, gives you an opportunity to ask some questions, make some connections, and find out that this guy's pretty good himself, you know. This is the album that Stevie Ray Vaughan got into trouble. Him and Jimmy Vaughan got into trouble, got a beating from the old man because they just played this song over and over and over again, you know, driving the old man crazy, you know. So yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 for just, what did Matt call it? A freight train?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he should know because he's involved. He knows about trains. But yeah, it's a 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and it's just a great way to end a show. And it's a topic, Matt, that we talk about when we go through albums, you know, the opening song, some of the songs in the middle, and whether or not a song should end an album or a DVD. But this certainly is, you know, a great choice for ending a gig. Thank you, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, I think it's you know, who knows how much they spoke about that kind of stuff, and if they talked about those things, and how you put your live show together. Brad has a lot of live experience and has played a lot of live stuff and has recorded his own music, and the way that you put songs together and like develop, and you know how you do what you do. I mean, it seems to really matter, but you know, like ending it with Wham the way that they do it's almost like driving the stake home. It's like, this is it. You know, they made the point, and it's like it at this point, I mentioned it at the beginning, it's almost overwhelming at that point. It's like you don't even realize how much more is left in the tank at that point. And it's like they're almost saying, oh yeah, no, we have a lot more in the tank here right now. We're going to end this at a pace that's just blistering. And then they're just done. That's it. You know, the show's done, and it's like no big deal. And I mentioned earlier, this is just what they did at that point. And it is slightly different than other stuff that you watch maybe like later in their career. You know, they were hungry at this point, and you know, they were pushing a new album, and you know, they probably went on the next night and just went and played somewhere else. You know, that's what they did.
Really good point. They just did it, mate. That's what they did.
Yep. It's interesting. I have not got that book yet, but they have a Facebook, or not a Facebook, Instagram page for that book, and I do follow that Instagram page, and it's great. I love all the Stevie Ray Vaughan memorabilia, pictures. You know, I do have some Stevie Ray Vaughan books, and I have read quite a bit about him, and I like seeing the old pictures and hearing the stories. And yeah, I mean, since I never saw him live and you guys never saw him live, what a treasure that would have been to be able to go in and, I mean, obviously get your ears abused by the crazy amount of volume. If you would have saw him in the club days, I'm sure, and that's ears ringing. I mean, your ears would be just screaming when you got out of there, but I would think it would have been worth it.
Oh, absolutely, Matt. Absolutely. You know, yeah, certainly. Yeah. So I just want to mention how cool they looked on stage too. You know how Stevie's wearing that hat. I forget the style of the hat, and you know he's certainly pretty cool. And I think on that DVD during the interview process, I think they're talking about how they went out somewhere and they went to a party and they had to walk through a mall early in the morning, and you know all these people were looking at them because you know they were dressed in their you know their stage gear that they actually wore during the day, and people were looking at them going, wow, what are they, you know.
Yeah, you know, and that's a whole nother subject just in itself. I mean, there was definitely, Stevie had a style, his own style. I'm sure that there's people that are into like style and things like that. They could say he grabbed this from here and there. I think his style as far as dressing was kind of just like a conglomeration of a bunch of different things. Like I said, the first time I saw him was his first Austin City Limits. So that's the one where he's wearing the blue kimono thing. I think that's what you call it. I mean, he was definitely a very unique individual as far as the things that he wore. But like you said, I think that's how he was all the time. You know, he had a unique style. I don't know if it was like Jimi Hendrix, Little Richard, Elvis, you know what I mean? It was Buddy Guy. It was like a mix of all these different people. And then, you know, another real popular Stevie Ray Vaughan live performance is the Japan one, where he walks out with a pipe and he's smoking a pipe while they're playing Scuttlebutt. And I mean, he's unique. He was a unique personality. And I
have the Sherlock Holmes pipe on that one. It's pretty cool, and he's smoking it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. He's dressed in all red, so he's got a unique style in that video too. I think that's who he was, what he was. I don't know. I'm not a style guy, so I don't understand that. This is kind of my style here. A Fender t-shirt and a hat. That's about it. But he was a unique individual for sure. Maybe it was an 80s thing too. I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely an 80s thing. Definitely. Yeah, you know, but he gave it that Texas twist. I want to share one other story with you guys. So I remember buying this book here. If you guys haven't checked this out, it's the Guitar World interviews. You can buy it on Kindle. It's available on a digital copy, but it's pretty good. It's got some good in-depth articles that he's had over the years with Guitar World, which is one of the Bibles, you know, that we read, because they do still have pretty good interviews. But anyway, the guy, I bought this from the local music shop because I've got a book section there, and one of the guys there I know really well said, "Oh, have you read that book?" And I said, No, I haven't." And he said, "Do you want me to spoil it for you?" And I said, "Well, tell me." And he said, "He dies in the end." Now, he's a very good friend of mine who said it. So, I don't want to, it wasn't morbid or anything like that or disrespectful, but it was a little bit, a little bit funny. But so when I read this book, I think of my friend John Maiden. But yeah. Sad. It's a sad story. Of course. But I just want to do a quick shout out, guys, to Pork Chop. I haven't seen Pork Chop for a long time. He used to be a regular to the channel, and he's just put some good comments in here. He's a Pork Chop Stevie Ray Vaughan. That's his handle. So big Stevie Ray Vaughan nut. See, Mad Hatter's made Stevie. See. There's guys in the chat, Matt and Brad, who know the stuff. So we're not the only guys that can nerd out on Stevie Ray Vaughan. I didn't know that. Still do. Custom orders, pricey but made. Wow. Thank you, Stephen. Where do you guys rate this DVD as far as all the live DVDs that you guys have seen or you've got over the years? Is that something that you want to talk about before we go?
Well, for me, as a blues performance, it's got to be probably one of the best ones ever. Like for me, even just for Texas Flood alone. I mean, I love the Austin City Limits show that came out. I really love the second performance where he's wearing the black shirt with the white on it, the white and black shirt, and the vest. And I really love that one. I love both performances, but I love that one, particularly the later one. But El Mocambo, in my opinion, it's got to be probably in the top 3 live, blues performances of all time. That's my opinion. What do you think, Matt?
For me, I think it's I think a lot in terms of how do you get people into blues? That's kind of a big thing for me, because I think that it needs to be accessible. Blues has got this weird stigma to it. It just really does. When you talk about blues, people generally are not thinking in a very performance kind of thing and dynamics and stuff like that. You can get to that eventually when you go backwards and see people, but as an initial response, I like El Mocambo for that initial thing, because even today, I mean, it was recorded in 1983 and we're in 2020 now. It still seems really relevant. And I think from a performance standpoint, it gives people a really good glimpse of, not an old school blues, but, the interpretation from Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble at the time. And it still seems relevant to me. It really is it's current with what is going on. I think it's a great way to bring people in. And that's something that I think in a lot of ways, we still haven't had another person since Stevie Ray Vaughan that can do that in a way that other people just can't. And I don't know why that is. I don't knock people, I hate to use somebody like Buddy Guy, but why doesn't Buddy Guy bring people in to the blues like Stevie Ray Vaughan, B.B. King, some of these other people do? I don't know why that is. I don't think you can explain it. I think it's it's a mental thing. It's appearance. It's what's going on with the music. And I just think we really haven't had anybody since Stevie Ray Vaughan that brings people in that. I think you can not be a blues fan. You can watch something like El Mocambo. It brings you in, and it makes you interested and curious in a way that it can make somebody an actual blues fan, and that's important in the blues world. I'm not somebody that just wants to do like highlight videos and stuff. If you're familiar with my page and you've seen my page, I want people to come in and discover, people that are not familiar with this stuff. I want them to like get interested in blues. And I think that El Mocambo as a whole is a very good resource for that kind of stuff. And I've used it. I've shown people that don't listen to blues. I'll show them Texas Flood because it's just unbelievable. And, the response is always like, I didn't even realize that could even be done on guitar. I never saw somebody actually perform in that way. That's what people say when they see that. I mean, it's even though it's from 1983, I think it's extremely relevant even nowadays.
Awesome. I've just got to press this button here, guys. Just hold on for a second.
Now it's time for Brad's Tech and Tone Tips.
Oh God!
You thought you were going to get away with that, eh? You thought you were going to get away without.
Now it's time for Brad's Tech and Tone Tips.
Okay. What's your tech and tone tip for this show, my friend?
Goodness. I'm overwhelmed by that.
I'll just do a quick shout out to Simon. He's jumped in to say g'day.
Hey, Simon. All right. Tech tip. Well, we'll keep it in theme for Stevie. We all know Stevie ran his amps extremely loud, and his tone came from basically, the volume. His amp would break up naturally through volume. That's where Stevie's tone was in his guitar and his amp, but his overall sound when he was using pedals was, he used and incorporated a TS style pedal. I don't know if you guys can see that, like a tube screamer style pedal. And he used it as a clean boost. So he'd dial in his amp, so his amp was dimed really loud, and there'd be a natural breakup to his tone. And then this would just basically expand and do a bit of volume on it. So you wouldn't necessarily use it as an overdrive as such. The settings, like, for example, I know for a fact this is not a specific setting of Stevie Ray's or anything, but that his drive would not necessarily be up well. A lot of people use a tube screamer and they put the drive up fairly high. I mean, that's maxed out. They would put it around here, but I know for a fact that he would have it fairly low in drive, and the volume, for example, would be up fairly high. It was never maxed out, these TS9s were notoriously a bit lumpy in the mid-range, so I'm not sure where that would be, but it'd be more suited to, you'd adjust it at the venue. And you see Stevie in El Mocambo actually use his toe at the start of Voodoo Child, and I'm sure he was probably pushing the drive up a bit for that song with his toe. But he would use TS 808s, 9s, and 10s later in his career. So I don't think a specific This is a late 80s one. So it would be around that sort of, this is one of the Jap ones. It's, I don't know if you can see that on the back there, it's got made in Japan. I don't know if it'll focus in.
Yep.
But it's got all the green resistors and whatnot in there. It's got all the good stuff in there. It's got the good TRC chip in it, which is sought after. But I think there's a lot of misconception where people think they can buy a tube screamer and they're going to get that Stevie Ray tone, and that's not necessarily the truth. And there is a really good video on Nick's channel where he describes the TS pedals, and basically what they did was he used it as a clean boost to his already volume peaked. Like the way he ran his Fenders were, if you run a Fender amp fairly soft and then you use that setting on a tube screamer, it's going to sound pretty crappy, really. This is really to emphasize the already overdriven tone, the natural overdriven tone of the Fender amp dimed out like to about 6 or 7. So anyway, long story short, that's my tone tip. Is Stevie Ray related. So
Brad reckons it's your hip flask.
that's my, yeah, it is. I pull it off my pedal board and I keep my alcohol in there somewhere, you know. And, but yeah, he used them as a clean boost, not as an overdrive. A lot of people think that that I've spoken to, tube screamer is going to give you that Stevie Ray tone, and a good portion of the gig, he's not using that.
Right.
Awesome.
Right. Yeah, and you can hear it when he kicks it on. I mean, it's obvious when he kicks the tube screamer on. It definitely, it bumps it up a little bit. It just does. And I think, there's plenty of us now that understand what I'm going to say, but when I was younger and newer and didn't understand things, I never realized how actually clean Stevie Ray Vaughan actually played. His amps had a lot of headroom, and if you don't know what headroom is, that's just, they're clean. They really were not broken up. I mean, the volume was way up on them, and that's the only way you can get that. If you're playing in a small room in your house and you go out and buy a Fender Twin, chances are you're never going to get that tone because it's too loud. You need to be up on 8, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. And then if you're going to actually do like what Brad was just talking about, if you're going to add a tube screamer on top of that, and then, the drive is down and the volume is up, and then you kick that and it starts pushing your amp, now it's going to get even louder, but it's relatively clean. It's not an overdriven sound. And I think that's one of the things that, newer players or just people that are still trying to wrap their head around like the tone and how you achieve it. It's more clean than it is dirty. It just is. And, your volume knob on your guitar is probably the most important thing in that chain, of effects, guitar, amps, all that stuff. The magic really is the tweaking of your guitar with your volume, and then how you attack it, where how light is your touch and how heavy is your touch. It's chasing tone, and it goes on and on and on and on and on forever. It just does.
It's a real rabbit hole. And we also got to remember we haven't got Stevie Ray's hands, which probably, and his ability. So to get in the ballpark, like a Fender Twin Reverb cranked will get that natural So, like the amp, once they get run out, like Matt said, over about 7, they start to sit in that sweet spot for the amp. But before that, they're very clear and clean and very bitey. They're not necessarily a pleasing amp to play soft. You've really got to drive those amps to get them to sound the way Stevie did. And his volume was ridiculously loud, and he was notorious for that. But to get the dynamic the way he played, that was it. And just to close that off, his tone, his foundational tone, came from his guitar and his amp. That was what he went for. That the pedals did nothing; they were color.
Yep. And like you mentioned with the tube screamer, what that adds is so little because it's in his guitar, his amp, and his hands. I mean, that little bit, you can hear it when he kicks it on, especially just because we're talking about El Mocambo. You can hear those moments.
Yep.
But, he can even kick on the tube screamer and then start adjusting his volume on his guitar, and then that just changes everything right there. I mean, somebody we spoke about earlier that does have actual videos that walk you through pedals and amps and guitars is Philip Sace. You can actually find videos of him breaking that stuff down. And I've learned plenty of things from Philip that I just never even realized that, if you're running like a pedal to drive your amp and then you kick in like a wah pedal, he won't have his volume on his guitar wide open. He rolls it back a little bit, and the difference in tone is huge when you do that kind of stuff. When he does it, then you're like, oh, wow, that's the tone right there. I get it. So, it's working with what you have and testing all that kind of stuff. And, I'm definitely not I'm not a genius when it comes to that stuff, but you can find that stuff on YouTube. And, I mean, if all you can afford to buy is a Squire Strat and like a reasonably priced Fender amp, you're in the ballpark at that point already. That's a good starting point for anybody.
Yep. I fully agree with you. Fender Blues Junior.
Yeah, Blues Junior. I have a Blues Junior. I have a few different Fender amps, but I do have a Blues Junior, and that amp gets you in the ballpark right away.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for anyone who's really interested to break it down, just check out Nick 70's The Riff channel, because he does some pretty in-depth stuff on Stevie Ray Vaughan's tone and pedals and everything like that. So, and licks and lessons on Stevie Ray. So he's one to check out. Like Matt said, Philip Sace as well. There's some really good videos of him, and there's a bunch more. Matthew Scott. There's way more out there than just those ones as well. But
yeah, I'll put those links on the video, guys. Nick's certainly and Phillips, because they give the in-depth analysis, I suppose, that a lot of us really like, if you guys haven't already checked it out. But we're also mindful that people come and watch a lot of the videos that we put up later on anyway. So it's been a pleasure, Matt. We've been on air for 3 hours. We would love to have you come back and join us for a couple of shows next year. We're going to be doing a Jimi Hendrix show, so we'd love to have you on and contribute to that. We can work something out in the new year and get something going. If you would like to join us, you always have an invitation to come back on.
Definitely, and the same to you. I appreciate having this platform to come on and talk. It's it's great. You know, I would be thinking about this stuff, even though I'd be sleeping at this time normally, but I would probably
Yeah.
be dreaming about it at this point on a normal. And, you know, I can't thank Brad enough. We met this year on Instagram, and, you know, I consider him a friend at this point because we talked. Brad and I talked like 4 hours the other night on Instagram. But it's great to talk to him, and I like having him on here because I'm not somebody that's gonna go out and play guitar and people are gonna get excited about it. So, you know, I'm more towards the fan type of thing, and also, like I said, I want to promote good music. You know, the stuff
Absolutely.
Brad,
Yeah.
the stuff
Yeah,
Brad puts out. You know,
Yeah.
I love Brad's music, and
Thank you.
I like having him as I don't want to say he's like my safety blanket, but it's nice having a guy that can actually play the stuff because
That's
that's
why
not
he's
me.
Yeah, that's why he's on our channel, and he's
Thanks,
yeah,
Matt.
and we're very lucky to have him because he gives us that perspective. So we know exactly what you're talking about, Matt. You know, I'm a guitar player of degrees, and our other co-host Simon, he's a guitar player too. He gigs as well, but you know, to get another co-host on that's played, you know, in some pretty big gigs and that's recorded gives us some authenticity and some credibility. And having you come on and talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan, who is clearly and obviously a Stevie Ray Vaughan nut, again, gives us something to bounce off. I've certainly learnt something tonight, and I've appreciated hanging out with someone that has the passion for the blues because it's contagious. It's a little bit... We're serious about what we do here. You know, we're video creators and musicians here. We're serious about it too, about making sure, you know, specifically the English blues genre is discussed because, you know, there's some good stuff there, you know. But we always branch off to, you know, other types of blues. You can't help but do that because, you know, basically blues goes all the way back to where, you know, the Delta. You know, so we're always going to have that connection. Look, we've been on here for 3 hours, so I just want to remind everybody in the chat that you're lucky because you're going to get, this is the weekend that you get Brad and I tomorrow with Steve Anderson and Kurt 5150 for probably 3 hours. And then on Sunday, you get Brad and I with our other co-host on the Sunday show, Simon, and we're going to be going through the album Gary Moore's Still Got the Blues.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a busy weekend for us, Matt.
That's a big one there. That's a big one. I mean, Brad and I have talked about Gary Moore, and everything that we've said about Stevie Ray Vaughan, I feel the same way about Gary Moore. I mean, that's a huge influence. And I definitely look forward to seeing that from you guys. I love it. I watched your guys when you talked about the Beano album, and
Appreciate that.
That's another one for me. I mean, that's huge. I love it. I listen to it, and you know, that's a very, very important album. So yeah, I mean, shout out to you guys. I mean, I love this content. You know, you guys are,
thank you.
You're really doing good stuff here, and it might not be appreciated on the level that it should be currently, but as long as you guys keep doing this stuff, you know, this is it, good things come to you when you keep putting out good content. I mean, it's important.
Content is king. Exactly. No, you're right, and we appreciate the support and the kind words, Matt, because you know you are a veteran and an experienced social media platform creator. So you know we'll take your advice and your comments and appreciate them and use them. If you guys haven't subscribed to Matt's Instagram channel, it's easy, Dropkick Blues. Just go to Instagram, key in Dropkick Blues. If you haven't subscribed to Brad's channel, it's easy, Brad Cook Music. Easy. You can find them, subscribe to them. These guys are on there regularly. And thank you for wanting to come back. We'll organise a show, the Jimi Hendrix show, and we'll get you on because I know that you're a Jimi Hendrix nut too.
Yes, definitely. That's another easy one to come on, and it's great having Brad around for that kind of stuff too. Brad is he's really, really good, and the people that don't even realize it yet, he blows me away when I hear him play.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
And we'll get Simon on that show too, our English co-host on that show, because he's a Hendrix nut as well. So, but yeah, so thank you for hanging out with us, everyone in the chat. Pork Chop, Simon, Warren, Arvin. Who else have we missed here, guys? Nelson, thank you for joining us. I'm just scrolling up. Stephen, thank you. Ellen, and I think your dad was in here too, wasn't he?
Yep.
Ken.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. We appreciate all the support and the comments, because if it wasn't for you guys sharing some comments in the chat, it would be one-dimensional.
And, I'll just throw in, thank you so much, Matt, for taking the time out, because I know it's very late for you right now.
Yeah.
So thank you, Matt, and thank you for the kind words, and I mirror them straight back at you, buddy. You're the guru of Instagram. I think you've got the best account on Instagram, and I do consider you a friend too, mate. And hopefully in the near future, if I get to tour over that way, we can catch up for a decent beer and a proper handshake.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Look forward
Absolutely.
to it. I look forward to talking to you guys again. It was a blast. I had a great time, and this is great. I love it.
Maybe in a couple of months' time, maybe we should go through and compare the two Montreux gigs. Talk about that. I'd love to talk to you guys about that, because that's deep diving. There's a bit of juice in that topic, isn't there?
2-part show, that one.
Yeah. You got it, brother. You got it. Simon, we'll see you. Well, yeah, if you want to jump on the chat tomorrow, we'll be hanging out another 3 hours, and then we'll be with Simon live. So,
guys,
I'm
I just want to point one thing out. Andrew threatened me today that I can't leave the show. He said, you can give me notice, but I won't accept it. So I'm still... I won't say the exact words he said, but they started with F. Your F.
Yeah. Matt, stay safe. Stay safe, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Stay safe, and I'll see you on Instagram.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.